6 cruel words on a plain kitchen note ruined my 3-year relationship and my upcoming wedding in an instant. The woman I loved, the woman I was supposed to marry, abandoned our entire future without a single proper explanation. No tears, no conversation, no closure, just a cold, careless goodbye that left my world shattered to pieces. That fateful note lay flat on my kitchen counter, right beside her spare house key she'd left behind. Just 6 short words were all it took to erase every promise, every plan, every memory we'd built together. I had a sparkling engagement ring ready for her finger, and a wedding date boldly circled on my calendar. Yet she discarded our lifelong love story as casually as someone canceling a trivial dinner reservation. Vanessa. I shouted her name into the empty, lifeless apartment, feeling utterly foolish and desperate. I clung to a tiny, stupid hope that she'd hear me and come back, but only silence answered my cries. That devastating first night after she left, I dialed her phone number exactly 23 times. I counted every single call numbly, because cold numbers hurt far less than the agony of my broken heart. By my 4th attempt to reach her, every call diverted straight to voicemail. She'd blocked me completely. I'd been erased from her life in seconds, after dedicating 3 whole years to loving her wholeheartedly. The handwritten note broke my heart, but it wasn't the worst part of my tragedy. The real humiliation struck just 2 days prior, at our lavish, crowded engagement party. 200 guests raised their champagne glasses and toasted us as the perfect, unbreakable couple. I stood tall in my brand-new tailored suit, holding her close, blind to the cruel joke everyone else saw. I had no idea that every warm toast and heartfelt blessing was just fuel for the town's cruel mockery of me. I was the oblivious punchline to a joke I'd never heard, left waiting for a wedding that would never happen. A full week after she vanished, I dragged my exhausted, broken self to Grandma Ruth's doorstep. I hadn't slept a single peaceful night since that note destroyed every part of my perfect future. "Ryan, sweetheart, come sit with me," Grandma Ruth said softly, noticing my hollow, defeated state. "Everyone knows what happened, Grandma," I whispered, my voice cracking with raw embarrassment and pain. "Tony says the whole town's mocking me, calling me the fool who got left stranded at the wedding altar." "I never even made it to the altar at all," I mumbled, drowning in shame and self-pity. "What does it matter how far you got?" she questioned gently, refusing to let me wallow in my sorrow. "It matters because I look pathetic, weak, and utterly defeated to every single person who knows me." She poured me a warm cup of tea I had no desire to drink, sitting steadily across from me. She wrapped both hands around her own teacup slowly, taking a moment to gather her wise thoughts. "Do you truly understand what real heartbreak is, Ryan?" she asked me earnestly. "It is never the end of your life story, merely one incredibly loud, painful chapter. Most people mistake one terrible, heartbreaking chapter for their entire book of life. Right now, it feels like my whole world is over, like nothing good will ever come again. That's only because you're still trapped inside this painful moment," she told me firmly. She reached out and tapped my hand once, a steady, firm touch full of certainty and hope. "Give it 3 years. The man sitting in this chair will be a complete stranger to you." I refused to believe her words back then, stuck deep in my grief and hopelessness. I still clearly remember every second of that day in her cozy kitchen at 26 years old. I was convinced Vanessa Hart had stolen a piece of my soul that I would never, ever get back. I couldn't fathom back then that she'd only taken away something I never truly needed in life. She'd cleared space for something far better, far more genuine, waiting for me in the future. 3 years later, I stood proudly in the top-floor office of a building I'd designed from scratch. My life had transformed completely, beyond anything I could have imagined in my darkest days. Sophie knocked twice on my office door and let herself in without waiting for my reply. She was always prompt and decisive, never hesitant or unsure in any work scenario. "Do you have a minute to talk?" she asked me seriously. "Depends on what this is about," I replied, pausing my architectural work. "It's not a work matter, no client business at all," she said, pausing unexpectedly. Her hesitation was wildly out of character, instantly making me tense and curious. "It's about Vanessa Hart," she uttered quietly. My pen froze mid-movement, every muscle in my body tensing at that familiar name. "What about her?" I asked, keeping my voice calm and controlled. "She's back in town. I spotted her at the coffee shop on 5th Street this morning." Sophie folded her arms across her chest, her expression serious and full of disbelief. "Ryan, she's visibly pregnant, you can clearly see her baby bump." I set my pen down slowly on my desk, processing the shocking news steadily. Okay. That's all? What exactly do you expect me to say to this? I don't know what you should say, she retorted, frustrated by my calm demeanor. You loved her for 3 whole years. She dumped you 2 days before your wedding. Now she's back in town, carrying another man's child, and all you can say is okay? I turned my gaze out the office window instead of facing her, unable to explain the truth. That was a lifetime ago, I said quietly, masking every lingering old emotion. Was it really? Sophie's voice softened, filled with gentle concern for me. You still haven't taken her old photo out of your desk drawer after all these years. I stayed silent, no denial needed. We both knew every word she said was true. But Sophie had no idea the truth hidden deep beneath my calm exterior. No one at my firm knew the full story of how I'd healed and rebuilt my life. I was no longer the broken man who'd drowned in grief over a 6-word goodbye note. I'd grown, healed, and built a genuine, beautiful life for myself after the heartbreak. I had 2 precious little kids who called me Dad, my whole world and my greatest joy. I had an amazing woman who'd rebuilt my broken spirit from the inside out, asking for nothing in return. Vanessa knew absolutely nothing about my new life, my new happiness, my new peace. And she was about to walk right into the truth of everything she'd selfishly left behind. After Sophie left my office, I sat alone for a long while, lost in quiet thought. I struggled to refocus on my architectural drawings, my mind stuck on the unexpected news. 3 years prior, I was just a forgotten junior architect no one bothered to remember. Today my name was plastered on a prestigious downtown building, Cole & Briggs. The firm's name was Tony's creative idea, not my own, and it was perfect. He'd always said Briggs sounded stronger as the second half of the title, and he was absolutely right. You're doing it again, Tony said, walking in without knocking like he always did. Doing what? I asked, pulling myself out of my distant thoughts. That blank, staring nothing in particular zone you zone out in. You did it when the Preston deal fell through and after Grandma's surgery too. What's weighing on you this time? He asked, reading my subtle mood perfectly. Vanessa's back in town, I answered simply. Tony froze mid-step, his coffee cup halfway to his mouth in shock. Back for a quick visit or back for good? He pressed for clarity immediately. Back for good, and she's pregnant, I revealed flatly. Pregnant? He repeated in pure surprise, slowly sitting down across from me. He sank into the chair deliberately, like the heavy news needed time to sink in. Obviously not yours, right? He confirmed, already knowing the answer. Obviously, I nodded without hesitation. How are you truly feeling about all this? He asked sincerely. I'm fine, I replied shortly. Ryan, he said, seeing straight through my fake calm. I said I'm fine, Tony, I repeated firmly. He gave me the same knowing look he'd given me for 3 full years. It was a look that said he didn't believe me but he wouldn't push me to talk. Tony always knew exactly when to press for answers and when to let me process alone. That's why our partnership worked so seamlessly all these years. He handled charismatic client work while I managed precise, detailed design work. Together we built a thriving firm with our names on 4 downtown buildings. We even had a 6-month waiting list for new projects, a testament to our hard work. You know what day it is today, right? He asked, deliberately switching topics. I felt instant gratitude for his thoughtfulness in easing my tense mood. It's Wednesday, I replied automatically. Kid pickup day, he reminded me quickly. You've got 20 minutes before the school calls wondering where you are. I glanced at my watch and muttered a quiet curse, grabbing my jacket instantly. Go on, get out of here, Tony waved me off. I'll handle the Whitfield call. I rushed out the door, grateful for his constant, reliable support. I arrived at the school with only 4 minutes to spare, cutting it far too close for comfort. I never liked rushing when it came to my kids, they deserved all my care and time. I'd never taken their safety and presence for granted, not a single day since their birth. After losing everything once without warning, I guarded my blessings fiercely. Daddy! Elena yelled, sprinting full speed straight into my legs as usual. Daniel walked over much slower, his backpack slipping off one tiny shoulder. He was chattering excitedly before he even fully reached my side. Miss Carver said I drew the best picture in the whole class today. He beamed proudly. His artwork was a silly, adorable drawing of a dinosaur eating a slice of pizza. That sounds like an absolute masterpiece to me, I told him warmly. It is a masterpiece, he insisted proudly, making me smile genuinely. Elena tugged hard on my sleeve, her big eyes full of hope. "Can we get ice cream on the way home?" she begged cutely. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I could never say no to them. I laughed freely, a genuine, effortless laugh I never had to force anymore. "Fine, we can get ice cream, but you both have to eat a full dinner later." I strapped both kids securely into their car seats, double-checking every detail. I checked the mirrors twice, locked the doors twice, and checked everything once more. I knew my overprotectiveness was excessive by normal parent standards. But most parents hadn't spent a year living in terror of losing every good thing in life. Vanessa taught me the harsh truth that people you love can leave without warning. My kids taught me that precious joy is worth guarding with every fiber of your being. "Daddy, you're squishing my hand too tight," Elena complained softly. I instantly realized I'd gripped her tiny fingers far too hard while buckling her in. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," I apologized gently. "Were you having those scary thoughts again?" she asked innocently. The pure, honest words of a 5-year-old cut straight through my fake composure. "Something like that," I admitted quietly, touched by her sweet awareness. "Mommy says when you have scary thoughts, you say them out loud to make them smaller." I froze for a split second, my hand still resting on her car seat buckle. "Your mom's really smart," I said softly, filled with endless gratitude. "She's the smartest person ever," Daniel declared from the back seat confidently. He spoke with unshakable certainty, like the fact was completely undisputed. I rarely spoke Maya's name aloud, not to Sophie, not in the car, not even to myself. Saying her name felt like holding something private, precious and hard-won. I didn't want the world that broke me once to touch the peace she'd given me. But as I drove home, listening to my kids bicker over their favorite ice cream flavors, the tight, heavy tension in my chest finally melted away completely. Vanessa was back in town, stirring up old ghosts I'd long buried. But she had absolutely no idea what a beautiful, fulfilling life she'd walked away from. I never expected her to work up the courage to show her face to me again. Underestimating her bold, stubborn nature had always been my biggest mistake with her. Vanessa never waited for an invitation for anything she wanted in her life. She always marched forward and took what she thought she was entitled to. "Ryan." She stood confidently in my office doorway, like she owned the entire space. One hand rested lightly on her pregnant belly, the other braced on the door frame. "You look really good," she said, her tone warm and familiar. I set my pen down slowly, pausing to gather my thoughts and control my words. I refused to let old anger or old affection make me say something I'd regret. "Vanessa. Sophie told me you were back in town," I said evenly. "I told her not to make a big fuss over my return," she replied casually. She stepped into my office uninvited, settling into the chair across my desk. She acted like she'd sat there 100 times before, though she'd never visited. This entire successful office was a world she'd never once stepped foot in. "This place is incredible. Did you build all of this by yourself?" she asked. "Tony and I built it together. Tony Briggs," I clarified simply. "Tony's still around, huh?" She smiled easily, like 3 years of pain never happened. "It feels like nothing's changed between us at all," she said softly. "Everything has changed," I corrected her firmly, no room for argument. "Not everything," she disagreed, her eyes scanning my face searchingly. "You're not wearing a wedding ring," she observed carefully. "Neither are you," I shot back, "and you're clearly far along in a new relationship." She let out a light laugh, and the familiar sound startled me instantly. It was the exact same laugh I'd memorized during our 3 years together. For a split, disorienting second, I was right back at 26 and broken. I was standing in my old kitchen, clutching that cruel note that ended everything. "I deserved that breakup," she admitted quietly, owning her past cruelty. "You deserve a lot of things, Vanessa," I replied neutrally. "What are you doing here?" She shifted in her chair, one hand smoothing gently over her swollen belly. "I've thought about you constantly, especially these past few months," she confessed. She gestured vaguely to her pregnant body, hinting at her messy current life. "Things with Marcus are incredibly complicated right now. I started thinking we should finally talk, really talk and clear the air between us." "There's nothing left to clear up," I told her bluntly. "You left me. I moved on." "Did you truly move on though?" She leaned forward skeptically. "Sophie told me you're still single, no wife, no fiancé." "I know you better than anyone, Ryan. You never rush into new relationships. Part of you has been waiting for me to come back, I just know it," she insisted confidently. I almost laughed out loud at her unwavering, rehearsed arrogance. She'd clearly practiced that line in the mirror, convinced I'd still be pining for her. I was never waiting for you, I stated flatly. I'm not asking for full forgiveness all at once, she said, softening her tone. It was the same sweet, manipulative voice she always used when she wanted something. I just want a chance to reconnect, to start fresh, even just as friends. Vanessa, I know I hurt you, she continued sincerely. I know that note was cruel and cowardly, and I was young and terrified. I panicked back then, and I've regretted that terrible decision every single day. She reached across my desk, trying to touch my hand in a gesture of reconciliation. I pulled my hand back sharply before her fingers could make contact. We had something real once, she insisted. I don't believe that just disappears. A lot of life has happened since you walked out of my world, I told her. Like what? She pressed curiously. I have children now, I revealed calmly. Her eyebrows lifted in mild surprise, but not the shock she should have felt. Kids? Since when did you have kids? They're 5 years old. Twins? I answered plainly. You're dating someone who already has kids? She teased lightly. That's very mature and grown-up of you, she added with a playful tone. She completely misunderstood my words, assuming I was dating a woman with children. She thought I'd casually stepped into someone else's family as a temporary fix. I chose not to correct her wrong assumption, letting her hold onto her false reality. Well, she recovered quickly, pivoting to her intended plan. I'd love to meet them someday to see what your life looks like now. It might help me understand us better and where we stand today. A cold, certain feeling settled deep in my chest as I watched her confidence. You want to meet my kids? I asked directly. If it's not too strange, she replied easily. I mean, we were engaged once. I've earned the right to be curious about your life. She smiled warmly, fully confident that she still had a place in my world. So can I meet them? Please? She pressed again. I stared at her hopeful, oblivious face, my mind drifting back years. I thought of the darkest month of my life, and the person who saved me from myself. 3 years ago, I was trapped in my apartment for 11 straight days, broken and alone. I lied to Tony and told him I had a bad case of the flu. I lied to Grandma Ruth and told her I was perfectly fine, no need to worry. I lied to everyone because the truth was too painful to speak aloud. My fiancée abandoned me 2 days before our wedding, and I didn't know how to live again. On the 12th day, someone banged firmly on my front door. Ryan, open up. I can hear the TV, I know you're in there. I recognized the voice instantly before I even pulled open the door. It was Maya, Vanessa's best friend since college. She'd been a constant fixture at every dinner, holiday, and moment of our relationship. She'd watched our entire love story unfold and watched it crash and burn too. Maya, this is really not a good time, I told her weakly. It's never going to be a good time, so just open the door. I unlocked the door and let her in, exhausted and defeated. She stood there holding a grocery bag, wearing a simple old sweater, no pretense at all. I made homemade soup, she said, walking past me into my empty apartment. It's probably too salty, I always overseason my cooking. You didn't have to come check on me, I mumbled. I know I didn't, she replied simply. She set the bag on my counter and unpacked bread, soup, and my favorite cheap beer. I'm not here to talk about Vanessa, if that's what you're scared of. Then why are you here? I asked genuinely. Because you're my friend too, Ryan, not just her boyfriend. She looked straight into my eyes, no pity, no sympathy, just genuine care. It was the first time anyone had seen me as a person, not a broken, jilted lover. Somebody needs to make sure you're eating real food, not whatever's rotting in your fridge. A genuine laugh escaped me, shocking me after days of total silence. There's the guy I know, she said quietly, relieved to see me alive again. She never pushed me to talk about my heartbreak, never pressured me for answers. She just sat with me while I ate, watched terrible movies with me, and left gently. She came back 3 days later, then twice more the following week. No pressure, no questions, no forced conversations, just quiet companionship. You don't have to keep checking up on me, I told her a month later. I'm not checking up on you, she shrugged. I just like your company. Is that allowed? She asked with a small, simple smile. Dinner together became our routine multiple times a week. We talked about everything under the sun except for Vanessa and my heartbreak. I learned she dreamed of opening her own little bakery one day. She learned I'd once wanted to be a painter before architecture felt safer. Slowly, I stopped counting the days since that devastating note ruined my life. "You're staring at me again," Maya said to me one quiet night. "Sorry," I apologized quickly. "Don't apologize. Just tell me what you're thinking." "I think I forgot how to be around someone who doesn't try to fix me," I admitted. "You never needed fixing, Ryan." She smiled softly. "I just needed to stay. You were never broken, you just needed someone to remind you of that." I kissed her that night, soft and slow. It wasn't out of spite, revenge, or a need to prove anything to anyone. There was no audience, no performance, no hidden agenda at all. It was pure, gentle healing after years of pain and loneliness. It was love, not retaliation against the woman who'd left me. 9 months after that night, our twin babies were born. "Ryan." Vanessa's voice jolted me back to the present moment in my office. "You zoned out just now. What's your answer? Can I meet your kids?" I stared at her truly, seeing her misplaced confidence and blind ignorance. I thought of Maya at home, probably cooking dinner and laughing with our kids. I thought of how far I'd climbed from that broken man trapped in his apartment. Vanessa deserved to witness exactly what she'd thrown away 3 years ago. "Sure," I said calmly. "Come over this Saturday at 6 o'clock. Her face lit up with pure satisfaction, convinced she'd won me back. She had absolutely no idea what surprise was waiting for her at my home. Vanessa's mother Claire called me soon after, and I should have sensed trouble. "Ryan, sweetheart, it's been far too long since we've talked," she purred. Claire always spoke like every conversation was a performance for invisible people. "Come to dinner this Thursday, just us, Vanessa, and her Marcus." "Claire, I don't think that's a good idea," I started to decline. "I already booked the 7 o'clock reservation," she insisted firmly. "Don't make an old woman sit alone explaining your absence to everyone." I knew I should have refused outright, but I agreed against my better judgment. I told myself I was only going to gather answers I'd never gotten. Deep down, I wanted to see the man Vanessa chose over me. I wanted to understand the full story I'd been denied 3 years prior. Some foolish, lingering part of me still craved closure on my old heartbreak. I approached the restaurant table, and Marcus stood up to greet me with an over-wide smile. "Ryan, I've heard so many great things about you." I thought dryly that I'd heard absolutely nothing about him at all. His smile flickered for a split second at my unimpressed response. "All good things, I hope?" he asked Vanessa pointedly. "Of course." Vanessa rushed to agree, shooting me a nervous glance. Dinner started deceptively smoothly and quietly. Claire chattered non-stop, filling every silence before it could settle. Marcus ordered wine for the entire table without asking Vanessa's preference. Halfway through pouring, he suddenly remembered she was pregnant and couldn't drink. Force of habit, he laughed it off casually, no remorse at all. Vanessa laughed too, but her smile was a split second too late, forced and tight. "So Marcus," I asked calmly, cutting through the fake pleasantries, "how long have you two been together?" "A little over a year," he replied, cutting his steak dismissively. "Honestly, I never planned on a baby happening this fast." The entire table fell into an awkward, heavy silence. "Marcus," Vanessa hissed, her voice tight with embarrassment and anger. "What?" "I'm just being honest," he shrugged, completely unbothered. "It just happened fast, we're just figuring things out as we go." "Figuring things out?" I repeated his words quietly. "Life never goes exactly according to plan, does it, Ryan?" Claire cut in smoothly, patting my hand to steer the conversation away from conflict. "Speaking of plans, it's such a shame how things ended between you two. You and Vanessa were always such a perfect match," she added. "Mom," Vanessa protested weakly. "I'm just saying people find their way back to each other all the time." Claire smiled at me meaningfully, trying to plant a seed of reconciliation. "There's no shame in a second chance, Ryan," she insisted. "I'm not looking for a second chance, Claire," I replied firmly. "No." Marcus raised an eyebrow, suddenly intrigued by our history. "Vanessa told me you two were once engaged." "We were," I confirmed simply. "And I hear you've got kids now," he said, studying me judgmentally. "Funny how life works out. You landed on your feet really fast." "I worked hard for every good thing in my life," I corrected him. "Sure you did," he scoffed subtly, his tone condescending and dismissive. "Must be nice, having a ready-made family with 0 complications." I chose not to correct his wrong assumptions. I didn't speak Maya's name, didn't explain my kids were my own flesh and blood. I let him believe whatever shallow narrative he'd made up in his head. I let Vanessa keep living in her ignorant, false reality too. We should get the check, Vanessa said abruptly, sensing rising tension. I already took care of it, Claire announced, waving over the waiter. This was such a lovely night. We should do this again soon, right, Ryan? I glanced one last time at Marcus's careless, unconcerned face. I saw how little he cared about his unborn child and Vanessa's future. I saw how Vanessa's smile tightened every time he opened his mouth. I thought of Saturday's reveal, of the truth waiting for them at my house. Sure, Claire, I said neutrally. We'll see. Saturday arrived faster than I anticipated, calm and unrushed. I stood on my front porch at 5:55 watching Vanessa's car pull up. A strange, peaceful calm washed over my entire body. It felt like I'd been silently rehearsing this confronting moment for 3 years. You didn't have to wait outside for me, she said, stepping carefully out of her car. One hand rested protectively under her pregnant belly. I just wanted some fresh air. It's a nice evening, I replied. She looked up at my house, genuine admiration in her eyes. You built all of this by yourself? She asked again. Most of it, I answered simply. It's so you, clean lines, no wasted space, perfect and precise. She smiled warmly at me, comfortable and casual like old times. I'm a little nervous. Is that weird? She asked softly. Not at all, I replied evenly. What are their names? She asked curiously. Daniel and Elena. Those are such beautiful names, she gushed. She reached for my front door handle before I could offer to open it. Can I go in first? She asked. Go ahead, I agreed, letting her take the lead. I wanted her to be the one to open the door to her own shocking truth. Mommy? Is that someone here? Elena's tiny voice echoed from the hallway. Small pattering footsteps grew closer by the second. Vanessa froze completely mid-step, her body rigid with sudden confusion. Mommy? The door swung fully open and Maya stood in our entryway. Elena's small hand was tightly clasped in hers, flour dusted on her sleeve from baking. Vanessa, Maya said, her voice flat and careful, holding back every emotion. I watched Vanessa's entire world unravel in real time. Confusion flashed across her face first, followed by pure disbelief. Then her face crumpled as every missing piece clicked into place at once. Maya, Vanessa's voice cracked with shock and hurt. These are my kids, I said quietly, breaking the stunned silence. Our kids, I corrected firmly. Ours? Vanessa repeated numbly, the word feeling foreign on her tongue. She stared at Elena, then at Maya, then back at me in total shock. You two, you and Maya? Daddy, who is this lady? Elena asked shyly, tugging Maya's hand. Just someone Daddy used to know a long time ago, Maya said gently. She guided Elena back slightly, protective of our children without making a scene. Someone you used to know? Vanessa's voice turned sharp and bitter. I was your best friend, Maya. I told you everything. I told you about him. I know everything you told me, Maya said steadily, her jaw tight with anger. I also know exactly what you did to Ryan 3 years ago. So what? You swooped in the second I left town to steal him. I sat with him for 11 days when he couldn't leave his apartment, Maya retorted. I comforted him when your betrayal broke him completely. I didn't swoop in. I showed up when no one else would, she clarified firmly. There's a huge difference between the two. You were supposed to be my friend. Vanessa cried out desperately. I was your friend, Maya replied calmly. But I watched you destroy a good man and walk away without a second glance. Forgive me for not sending you a congratulatory card for your cruelty. Vanessa turned to me, frantic and desperate for any sympathy. Ryan, you let me believe I was meeting random strangers' kids. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? She begged. You never asked the right question, I said simply. You only asked to meet my children, so I let you meet them. That's cruel and manipulative, she accused. Is it? I kept my voice steady, calm and unshaken. You left a 6-word note on my counter and vanished for 3 years, Vanessa. You waltzed back into my life like nothing terrible ever happened to me. You assumed I'd been sitting around waiting pathetically for your return. I never said I was waiting, she protested weakly. You didn't have to say it. Your actions spoke volumes. You came back pregnant with another man's child and begged to reconnect with me. You only wanted to see if I was still your backup plan. I gestured toward Maya, Elena, and the house holding my perfect family. Well, I'm not your safety net anymore. I haven't been for years. I need to sit down, Vanessa gasped suddenly, her face draining of all color. One hand flew up to her stomach in panic. Vanessa, what's wrong? Her knees buckled before she could finish her sentence. I lunged forward instantly, catching her before she hit the porch steps. Her full weight crashed into my arms, heavy and unsteady. Elena, go inside right now. Maya ordered sharply, moving fast. Ryan, is she breathing okay? She's breathing. She's fine, I confirmed quickly. I lowered her gently onto the porch, checking her pulse and breathing. Panic flared in me, breaking through my long-held calm composure. Vanessa, can you hear me? She didn't respond, her chest rising and falling in shallow, fast gasps. Her hands clung tightly to her stomach, protecting a child that wasn't mine. Call an ambulance, Maya. I ordered urgently. Right now. The hospital waiting room lights were blindingly bright, cold and sterile. I sat between Maya and an empty chair, staring at the emergency room doors. Vanessa had been taken back for monitoring 20 minutes prior. You didn't have to stay here with me, I said to Maya softly. Yes, I did, she replied, squeezing my hand tightly. The baby isn't my concern, but you are always my concern. Ryan. Claire burst into the waiting room, her coat unbuttoned, face full of panic. What happened? The hospital wouldn't tell me anything over the phone. She fainted. That's all we know right now, I told her plainly. Fainted? Marcus walked in right behind her, completely unfazed and unrushed. He checked his watch impatiently, like this was a minor inconvenience. Is the baby all right? He asked dismissively. We don't have any updates yet, I replied coldly. Jordan. Maya called out suddenly, spotting her brother in scrubs. My brother works here in cardiology, he'll find someone to update us, she explained. Jordan walked over quickly, kissing Maya's cheek briefly. He faced our tense group with the calm professionalism of a seasoned doctor. I just checked on her vitals. She's stable, he confirmed. Her blood pressure spiked severely from intense stress. They're monitoring the baby closely, but the heartbeat is steady and strong. Claire exhaled a huge breath, collapsing into a nearby chair in relief. Stress-induced. Jordan nodded, glancing sharply at Marcus. Do you know what causes severe prenatal stress this late in pregnancy? Instability, constant conflict, and feeling completely unsupported. He kept his tone clinical, but his judgment was clear. Do you two live together? He asked Marcus directly. Recently, yeah, Marcus answered awkwardly. Recently? Jordan raised a skeptical eyebrow. What's your plan for after the baby is born? We're figuring it out as we go, Marcus mumbled, growing uncomfortable. Figuring it out? I repeated his empty words from dinner. Look, I never planned for a baby this fast. Marcus snapped, dropping his fake charm. I told Vanessa I wasn't ready for kids from the very start. She said she'd handle everything on her own, no pressure on me. Honestly, I planned to stay around just long enough for the baby's birth. I wanted everyone to think I was doing the right thing, he admitted carelessly. And then what? Claire's voice cut through the room like ice. Marcus stayed silent, his guilty face saying everything unspoken. You were going to leave her and the baby right after birth, I stated plainly. I never said that, he argued weakly. You didn't have to. Your silence says it all. I've seen countless nervous fathers in this hospital, Jordan said firmly. You're not nervous, you're completely checked out and indifferent. Claire stood up slowly, finally seeing Marcus's true colors clearly. I chose you for Vanessa. I pushed her to date you. I thought you were stable, successful, a perfect match for her, she said shakily. Mom, don't. I'm not finished, her voice cracked, her perfect facade finally shattering. I first pushed her toward Ryan, hoping for a perfect fairy tale story. When you two broke up, I thought it would look good for her reputation. A doctor's daughter reconciling with her successful ex, a neat story for society. I never once asked what Vanessa actually wanted for her own life, she whispered. Claire, don't beat yourself up over this, I tried to comfort her. I did this, she said quietly, staring at the floor in shame. I pushed her toward men who look good on paper, not men who love her. Now she's alone in a hospital room with a man who's already planning his exit. I stared at Marcus's unashamed face, waiting to feel satisfaction. I'd imagined this moment of his downfall for years. But I felt no joy, only sadness for the lost, misguided Vanessa. She'd spent years chasing empty stability, blind to real love right in front of her. 2 days after Vanessa was discharged from the hospital, she called me. "Can you come over? I just need to talk, please," she begged softly. I almost declined the request entirely. Maya looked up from folding laundry, giving me a small, knowing nod. "Go," she said gently. "You need to close this chapter for good." Vanessa's apartment was smaller and messier than I expected. Half-unpacked moving boxes still stacked against every wall. She answered the door in sweatpants, no makeup, no pretense at all. It was the first time I'd seen her completely unpolished and real. "Thanks for coming," she said tiredly. "How's the baby?" "Stable, growing and stubborn, just like her mother," she half smiled. "Marcus moved all his stuff out yesterday," she admitted quietly. "I figured as much," I replied neutrally. "Ryan, I need you to listen to me, not just wait for me to finish talking." "I'm listening," I assured her. "I'm not asking you to leave Maya or choose me," she said honestly. "I know that ship sailed forever ago. Watching you and Maya with the kids that day made me finally understand. You built something pure and real, something I never let us have. So what exactly are you asking from me?" I pressed gently. "I don't know how to do this single-parent life alone," she confessed. Her voice broke, all her pride and confidence finally crumbling away. "My mom's a mess, Marcus is gone, and I'm about to have a baby alone. You're the only person I've ever known who shows up when things get hard. I'm not asking for romance or a relationship," she clarified quickly. "I'm asking if we can be family in any way possible. I just need someone stable who won't abandon me or my baby." I sat silently for a long moment, old guilt stirring faintly in my chest. I still cared for the old version of her, still hated seeing her scared and alone. "Vanessa, I understand your fear and loneliness completely," I said softly. "But I can't be your safety net anymore." "Why not?" she asked desperately. "You have space in your life for more family. You have kids already, you know how to care for a child." "That's precisely why I can't do it," I replied firmly but kindly. "Maya and I built our life and family from nothing, quietly and honestly. I won't bring instability into our home just because you're scared of being alone. That's not fair to Maya, not fair to my kids, and not fair to you either." "What do you mean?" she asked, tears filling her eyes. "You don't need me to save you," I explained gently. "You need to learn how to save yourself and stand on your own 2 feet. Leaning on your ex for convenience isn't healing, it's just your old pattern. You always chase stable people to fix your broken world for you," I told her. She stayed silent, no argument, knowing deep down I was telling the truth. "I kept something of yours all these years," I said, pulling out a small velvet box. "I don't even know why I held on to it, just old habit I guess." I set the engagement ring box on the table between us. "I'm not returning this for sentimental reasons," I clarified. "I'm letting it go because I don't need to carry this pain anymore. I don't need to hold on to what could have been or what we lost." I stood up, feeling a 3-year weight lift from my chest entirely. "I hope you find genuine happiness and build a real life for yourself and your baby. But that life and that family won't include me," I said finally. She picked up the box, turning it over slowly as tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry for everything, Ryan," she whispered brokenly. "I know," I replied simply. "Are we okay?" she asked timidly. "We're going to be okay," I assured her. I walked to the door, pausing for one final second. "Take good care of yourself and your baby, Vanessa." I stepped out into the evening air, free and unburdened at last. For the first time since that cruel note, I didn't look back. "Grandma, you're cheating," Daniel accused playfully after dinner. We were all playing cards and Grandma Ruth had snuck an extra card. "I'm 81 years old. I've earned the right to cheat a little," she laughed. "That's not how rules work." Daniel giggled. "Rules bend for wise old grandmas," she winked, making him laugh harder. The dinner table was full, warm and peaceful, filled with pure joy. Tony leaned back in his chair, full and content after dinner. Maya laughed softly at Elena's quiet whisper, flour still dusted on her apron. "This is perfect," Grandma Ruth said quietly, catching my eye. "This is exactly what I promised you 3 years ago." "I remember," I smiled softly. "I just didn't believe it back then." "Grandma, tell the dinosaur pizza story again," Elena begged. "I've told it 4 times already," she protested gently. "Tell it 5 times. Please," Elena pleaded. My phone buzzed on the counter before Grandma could start the story. Sophie's name lit up the screen, and I almost ignored it on my peaceful Saturday. But I answered anyway out of old work habit. Sophie, what's up? Sorry to bother you at home, but I thought you'd want to know this. Vanessa's assistant called the office today for old lease paperwork. Vanessa's already left town, she informed me. Had her baby 3 weeks early. She had a little baby girl. She moved upstate to stay near her aunt for a fresh start, Sophie explained. No more Marcus, no more Claire, just her and her new baby. I sat with the news for a quiet moment, feeling calm relief, no pain. Thanks for telling me, Sophie. I appreciate it. You doing okay with all this? She asked gently. Yeah, I'm really good actually. I hung up and stared at my beautiful, chaotic kitchen full of family. I stared at the life I'd built from the ashes of my broken heart. Everything all right? Maya asked, noticing my quiet mood. Vanessa left town and had her baby, I told her. She's starting fresh. How do you feel about it? She asked softly. Relieved, I answered honestly. I'm not glad she suffered, but I'm glad she finally learned the truth. You can't build a real life waiting for someone to notice your worth. Look at you, full of wisdom these days, Tony grinned. I just had amazing teachers, I laughed. Multiple amazing teachers, Grandma corrected, patting the seat beside her. Come sit before your pie gets cold or I'll eat it for you. I sat down happily and Daniel immediately climbed into my lap. He smelled like syrup and crayons, pure childhood joy. Elena curled up beside Maya, right where she belonged. Dad? Daniel asked quietly. Are you happy now? The simple child's question cut straight through every complicated thought. I'm so happy, buddy. Happier than I ever thought possible. Good, he said simply. You used to have lots of scary, sad thoughts. Not anymore, I promised him. I glanced around the table at my perfect family. Grandma Ruth, who taught me heartbreak is just a temporary chapter. Tony, who stood by me through every dark day of my life. Maya, who loved me quietly, healed me fully, and never left my side. My kids, who had no idea how close I came to never having them. 3 years prior, I sat broken in Grandma's kitchen, convinced my life was over. I finally understood that endings are just new beginnings in disguise. That terrible note didn't end my story, it just turned the page. Vanessa leaving didn't destroy me, it freed me for better things. It cleared space for the love, joy, and family I'd always deserved. You're zoning out again, Maya teased gently. Just thinking about how far we've come, I smiled. From a single sad note on a kitchen counter to all this happiness. It feels like a whole different lifetime, she said, squeezing my hand. It is a different lifetime, I agreed wholeheartedly. Warm evening light flooded through our windows, wrapping our home in peace. All the pain, heartbreak, and uncertainty had finally circled back to perfect peace. I was no longer the broken 26-year-old boy waiting for love. I was home, happy, loved, and finally, nobody was ever leaving again.